Good morning. My name is Wendy Griffith. I'm from the Embry-Riddle Counseling Center. I'd like to speak to you a little bit about grief and very specifically about the type of grief we experience when we lose a parent. I'm a counselor here, but before I'm a counselor, I am a real live person with real life experiences. And although I recognize the value and worth of psychoeducation, sometimes I think that listening to somebody share their own personal life experiences can be just as helpful, if not even more powerful, than listening to suggestions. So, along the way, I will be sharing some personal experiences I've had with loss. Over my years here at Embry-Riddle, I have worked with students that have recently lost a parent. And there is one universal emotion that students have expressed that they are feeling. And they usually talk about it within the first few minutes of their first session. And the feeling is guilt. They talk at length about the guilt they feel regarding the loss. And often it revolves around they hadn't returned a phone call recently, they hadn't been responding to texts, maybe they hadn't gone home for the last break or the last long weekend. Whatever it is, they're feeling very, very guilty. You know, I recognize that feeling and I'm very familiar with that feeling. I experienced guilt when both of my parents died. My father died when I was 15. His death was very sudden and very unexpected, but I still remember that night very clearly. And my parents were in the family room. They were sitting on the couch together watching TV, and they asked me to join them. And I said, no, I've got homework to do. I've got to go do it. And I so regret that I did not spend time with them that evening, specifically my father. And I experienced guilt when I was 20 and my mother died. My mother had had some serious health issues, but at the time of her death, she was doing fairly well. She wasn't in the hospital, but the circumstances were that I was going to college. I attended college that was about 3 hours away from my home. And my boyfriend and I had had a fight. And so I decided I was going to go home for the weekend. And I was about 2 hours into that trip. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to be a grown up. I'm going to go back. We're going to talk this out and things are going to be fine. And I turned around and went back. And approximately a week or so later, my mother died. So I had significant guilt that I had not finished that drive and spent the weekend with her. So again, those were experiences I had as a young person. Obviously, I'm not that young person anymore. But now I am the parent. And as a parent, I want you to know that we recognize that our children are not responsible for our emotional well-being. We do not expect them to spend all of their free time with us. We have dreams for our children and we want those dreams to come true. So we know that children need to invest in their own life, in those dreams. We recognize that our children have real responsibilities, that they have demands on their time. And we also recognize that our children have social lives, and we want our children to have social lives. We want them to have good friends. So, the word guilt implies that we have done something wrong. You have done nothing wrong. So I encourage you to practice some grace and some compassion towards yourself and try hard to let go of those feelings that you have. Another thing that students often talk about is that they have had some type of recent disagreement or argument with that parent. Sometimes it was their very last interaction. And so they have tremendous guilt about that as the finality of the relationship. But I think it's really important to look at the larger context. You were going about your life, living your normal life experience, and then an abnormal experience happened. We have disagreements with our family. Parents have disagreements with their children. Children have disagreements with their parents. It's a normal experience. It's a normal part of any relationship. So I would encourage you not to focus on that aspect of the relationship. Your relationship with your parent was so much more than that. Your experience with your parent, that relationship was about everything in between. It was about all the shared holidays, vacations, Father's Days, Mother's Days, birthdays, and all the everydays of normal life. That was what your relationship with your parent was about. It was about the big picture. So again, I would encourage you to focus on that big picture. Every once in a while, I've also had students who express feeling guilty because they experienced relief when their parent died. And typically the circumstances surrounding that relief is that their parent was either experienced some type of very serious illness, possibly cancer. Maybe they were struggling with an addiction or possibly a mental health illness. And again, I think it's really important to clarify what you are experiencing. You are not experiencing relief over their passing, but you are experiencing relief over the fact that your parent is no longer in that struggle that they were having. There are actually physical symptoms when we are grieving. Our immune system is suppressed. We are more likely to be susceptible to flu germs, cold germs. And oftentimes we just don't feel very well when we are grieving. Oftentimes we lose our appetite. There's this underlying sense of nauseousness or queasiness. And often we are very tired and we just crave sleep. And those are symptoms of not feeling well, of being sick. And in some ways, when we are grieving, we are sick. We are heart sick. So it's really important when we are grieving to take care of ourselves. I'd encourage you to graze rather than eat large meals. Have healthy snacks available. Maybe an apple with peanut butter, hummus and carrots, yogurt with fresh fruit in it, or maybe cereal and yogurt mixed together. Soup. Soup is always very comforting. And toast as well. And that aroma of toast is one of those things too, I think that's comforting to us. I also just encourage you to be aware of comfort and giving yourself that gift of comfort as you grieve. Sometimes when we're grieving, we are cold. We are cold in the inside. And there's something very comforting to wrap up in a blanket that's just soft and cuddly. And maybe fixing yourself a cup of tea and holding that warm cup in your hands. And just experiencing those moments of comfort that you can sit in. I would encourage you to consider setting up some type of a private memorial to your parent. And that is something as simple as having one or two items that are significant for you and represent your parent. Sometimes it can even just be their cologne or their perfume. Fragrance is a really powerful reminder for us. It elicits all sorts of emotions. We attach emotions with those fragrances. But to spend time with a picture, that fragrance, that memento, that item from the house, and just spend time with your thoughts with that person. And there will be all sorts of memories that come up. And initially, often most of those memories are going to make you feel sad, even when they are good memories. But I promise you, you will get to the point where you can think about those memories and they will bring you happiness. You will be able to smile and enjoy that memory and be glad that you have those memories to recall that person. I would also encourage you to really reach out to people. Hopefully you have other family members that are also experiencing grief, and you can talk and share your feelings with that person. It's important that you feel those feelings. You need to feel so that you can heal. And sometimes, especially if it's a new experience with grief, we really don't even know how we feel. And talking about it with another person that's also going through it can help us process and identify what it is we really are experiencing. Sometimes our peers, when we are young, do not know what to do. Oftentimes, they have never experienced such a serious loss, or they have very limited experience with loss. So they feel awkward because they don't know what to do or say. And it's really, really normal for people when they don't know what to say or do to avoid. So you may feel some of your friends pulling away a bit. And I am sorry if you're experiencing that. But I would really encourage you to reach out to your friends and tell them what you're needing at this time. If you're needing just a lot of alone time, explain that to them. Say, I miss you guys. I want to hang out with you, but right now, I'm just not in that place. I'll let you know, though, when I want to get back together and hang out. Or maybe you do want to hang out, and let them know that. And let them know you may not be your normal self. You may be quieter. You may kind of drift off, but you still want to be around them. You might just want to spend time with your best friend or one or two of your closest friends. And you may want to spend that time talking to them. You may want feedback, or you may not want feedback. You might not want any advice from them. And if that's the case, again, let them know what you're needing Let them know you just need a sounding board, somebody to listen to them as you pour out your feelings. Grief tends to be a very solitary experience, and we do tend to remove ourselves from others. We spend a lot of time up in our head processing and going through what we are experiencing. We spend a lot of time in our heart feeling our feelings. But sometimes, again, it's that solitary experience, and we need that. Sometimes we end up being really lonely too. We don't really want to be around others, but we're lonely. And if that's the case, I'd encourage you to invite just one or two of your closest friends just to come and sit and be with you. Just turn on a show and watch a couple of shows. Again, nobody needs to talk. Nothing else needs to be going on, but just having their company there can make a difference for you. But again, I'd really just encourage you to have courage to ask for what you need and to tell your peers what you need. Grief is a very complex, complicated emotion. It's a very personal journey, and it is different for each one of us. There is no one formula to get beyond grief. But I will tell you, you will get beyond this grief. Losing a parent at a young age is life-changing. How could it not be? But you have dreams for yourself. Your parent knew those dreams, or at least some of those dreams. In honor of their memory, hang on to those dreams and focus on those dreams and celebrate the accomplishments of that dream or those dreams as you get closer and closer to their fruition. You know, again, there is no timetable for grief. And I remember with my father, it was a very, very gradual process that I went through. And it was probably about a year that it took for me to feel like I was really back on solid ground. But I was on solid ground. There was a firm foundation under me again. For my mother, it was a very different experience. My mother died in February, and I still remember the day that I felt better. It was a beautiful, beautiful spring day. And I remember it was like I suddenly stepped into that spring day. And I was aware of color. You know, prior to that, it was like the world was gray for me during my grief. And there were varying shades of gray. There were darker shades, there were lighter shades, there were the darkest shades. But again, on that spring day, I stepped into colors, and I remember seeing the brilliance of the blue sky, feeling the warmth of the sunshine, that springtime sunshine on my skin. There was a very gentle breeze that day. And I remember I heard the birds singing. And I recall thinking, I am going to be okay. And that's what our parents want for us. They want us to be okay. They want us to experience the fullness, the richness, and the vibrancy of our life. They want us to see in living color. So, those are just some of my thoughts, experiences regarding the loss of a parent. I hope that you found some help in some of the things I shared. I hope you've heard some validation in some of the things that I said. Please know that if the counseling center can be of assistance to you, reach out to us. We are here for you. We are here to support you and to provide a safe space for you. So thank you. Take very good care and goodbye.